Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We're going to give it just another minute, 30 seconds to let everyone log in, and then we will get started. Perfect. A few housekeeping items while we wait. There's an opportunity to use the Q&A feature in order to answer or enter any of the questions that you may have. So please utilize that throughout the conversation, and we will get to your questions as we can. Everyone is on mute at this point, so if you would like to put your questions in there, we'll make it easier, and we will ask them either throughout or we'll get to them at the end of the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's Smartcat CMO webinar that's going to be focused on how AI is driving marketing strategies. We're thrilled to have you join us in this dynamic discussion about the current and the future impact of AI in marketing. So AI is just no longer a concept for the future. It's here. It's actively reshaping how global marketing teams research, create, personalize, and also scale their efforts. So whether we're ready or not, AI is being rapidly integrated into marketing workflows, and executive expectations are shifting. So what's the challenges we face as marketing leaders? It's the fact that AI is evolving at an unprecedented pace. Its applications are constantly expanding. Definitions are in flux, best practices are still emerging, and marketers have to navigate this transformation with both agility and strategic foresight. So that's exactly why we brought together some of the most forward-thinking marketing leaders for this virtual roundtable discussion. I'm Melissa Alonso. I'm Smartcat Senior Director of Growth Marketing, and I'm honored to be joined by three experienced and extremely insightful CMOs today. So we're going to explore a couple different things. One about the current state of AI adoption, where marketing teams stand today, and what's holding some teams back. And also cover the near-term AI advances that all CMOs should be embracing right now. There will be another topic to talk about, which would be game-changing AI trends set to redefine marketing in 2025. We want you to walk away with practical advice on how marketing leaders can audit their AI readiness, identify internal champions, and also experiment with your AI-driven workflows to make sure you stay competitive. So at this point, let me introduce our amazing panelists. First, we have Jessica Gilmartin. She is the former CRO and CMO at Calendly and also the head of revenue marketing at Asana. Francois Dufour is the CMO and advisor. My favorite part of his title is wingman for the AI era, and also the former VP of marketing at Udacity, Twilio, and others. Also, we have Chris Taylor, who's the Chief Growth Officer at Left Lane Capital. He's a fractional CMO to portfolio companies and the former CMO of Automatic, most notable for WordPress. So at this point, I'd love to dive in and have each of the CMOs give their impressions on what you're seeing in AI adoption today. Jessica, would you like to kick us off?
Yes, thanks so much, Melissa. Very nice to be here and great to meet all of you. Look forward to the conversation. So I have been doing fractional work and interim work consulting for the past 9 months, and it's been really interesting getting to work with so many different companies, both bigger and smaller. So what I'm seeing is a pretty big divide between companies that are really excited about AI, they're embracing it, they're kind of figuring out how do they turn all of their marketing into very sort of AI forward. And I'd say that that's a very small portion of what I'm seeing. And I'm seeing that the vast majority of companies are a little bit afraid of AI. They're afraid of how it's going to affect their employees. They're not really sure how to get started. And I would really encourage everybody here on this call to embrace AI, not only for your current role, but also as you think about your future. I have the opportunity to talk to a lot of recruiters in my job right now. And what is so interesting is for the first time, the recruiters are telling me that CEOs are actually looking for startup CMOs, are looking for smaller company CMOs, because they're finding that the CMOs from those larger companies are just not embracing AI in the way that they want them to. and they feel like they're just not as forward thinking. And so I think this conversation is really important, and this topic is really important because for all of us that have many more years of wanting to work and wanting to work at a high level, and being able and willing to embrace AI is going to be the difference between getting those really great jobs and those great roles or not.
Couldn't agree more. And I feel like there's a lot of, it's not too late to start. Like there's people that feel like they're light years in the future, but there's also people that haven't even dipped their toe in. So I think it's a great conversation as we go throughout. Francois?
Sure. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Jessica said. So I just wrapped up an assignment as acting CMO of an AI coding company. So I've seen also what it looks like at a company where I built a team that was really AI forward. And as Jessica said, there's a big divide between teams that really invest the time to understand and use it, and those who are lagging behind simply because sometimes they don't spend the time or they're blocked by IT. So seeing a wide difference of adoption, and but also it's really easy to get started. It just takes a little bit of time and investment and making sure that you encourage the teams. It's what the most fun is that you look at the teams that have adopted AI and they all report higher job satisfaction. So instead of being and fearful about that, they can go faster, feel smarter about their markets, their marketing plays, and produce more fast. So even though there's a divide and everybody is also telling us 2025 is the year of agent, and then frankly, the real autonomous agents are not here or necessarily ready to be implemented yet. There's a lot to be done. And a lot is starting with a lot of research, better product marketing, and then in terms of operations, the execution ways to go faster there and do better analysis as well.
Amazing.
On
Chris?
the recruiting front, sorry,
Yeah,
Jessica's absolutely right. I'm even helping some companies dedicate at least half of one interview to assessing AI readiness and state of mind, because that's really essential to be able to do better work faster.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I,
Miss-
I work in a Left Lane Capital. We're a VC firm. We have a portfolio of almost 90 companies now. So I have exposure to a lot of different companies, all pretty early. Our larger companies are, maybe have some hitting $100 million run rate, but generally they're, $10 million companies that we've just invested in. And even among that kind of very young companies, tend to be young founders, there's this huge discrepancy in terms of adoption of AI, understanding and comfort of it with AI. We have CEOs coming to us and saying, how do I even get started? How do I leverage this across the company? How do I know where this is going to fit in the processes we've got? Looking for advisors and so forth. And the first thing I always tell them is just start using it yourself. Best place to figure out how to use AI is by asking AI. And so sit down with Claude, um, describe your job, your company, your role. What are the challenges you have? And you'll start to get some really good insights, I think, and just having that kind of conversation. I think just getting in the practice of thinking AI first, when you've got something you don't know how to do, or something you think you know how to do, for new ideas and so forth, is really how you move things forward. And then, yeah, just again to chime in on the hiring front, I just wrote a piece for our companies on how to structure marketing orgs, how to build them out over time as your company scales and so forth. Um, but one of the things that was in there that obviously would not have been in there maybe even a year ago was look for candidates only that can not only talk intelligently about AI, but can talk about how they've used it. And so I think as you're hiring, as you're motivating your internal teams, that promise for that can be a real kind of stick or carrot in terms of how someone thinks about their career. But that promise is something you should really focus on, that it makes you more marketable.
Absolutely. I mean, there's obviously a significant divide in AI adoption. So again, some people are light years ahead. There's early adopters who are already reaping the benefits. And there's a lot of people that are still fearful and they have a reliance on traditional methods. So there's one thing though that's clear. It's like it's part of the recruiting process now, and CEOs are really prioritizing the CMOs that have hands-on AI experience. And I think that it would be helpful if we could really dive into like the most effective AI applications. So we've talked about deep research, persona development, competitor analysis. There's content generation, even like hyper-personalized campaigns. So let me ask you, where have you seen the most immediate impact from AI adoption in your marketing operations? Are there any surprises that came up about the early wins or challenges?
Yeah, I would just say one of the things that I've seen, the most dramatic impact I've seen is in creative, and I think not necessarily in the most intuitive way that people think. They think, oh, the obvious thing is just to use AI to create content, whether that's written content or visual content. I think the most innovative companies are figuring out how to use it to analyze the content that they're using, understand what's working, and then iterate on that quickly, and take some of the manual, slower moving parts out of that content creation process and speed them up. So I think there are tools out there that help you do that, that help you analyze and create briefs and iterate and so forth. Um, but I think I've seen companies build these kinds of things themselves too, and I think that's where I think it's most impactful at this point.
Yeah, that's where the usage starts, really. It's everything around content production. Can I create blog posts, articles, images faster? And there's really two big chapters: everything you do for internal production and productivity, and starting with planning. And the second thing is what Chris also mentioned, is what's going to be customer facing, and which that's a little more complicated if you unless you really have, and right now that's the trend. Everybody wants to really supervise and look and verify what's coming out before reaching out, before letting it outside to the world. Um, One of the most transformational thing I've seen is, for instance, a lot of good marketing starts with really good product marketing. And so, and this is talking about deep research, the ability to very quickly educate yourself on the market, on the segment, on recent trends, to scan and analyze and organize around themes, what people say on social, review sites, all these things is now unprecedented. And the work of product marketers is deeply accelerated, and then they can package that up into centralized knowledge resources, almost like your audience or your persona synthetic GPT or cloud project, that can then inform and critique all the rest of the content that the rest of the marketing team can produce.
Yeah, I totally agree. The research to me is incredible. And there's a lot of ways that we've been using it recently. One of them is around research, but not only to internally create research, but for external research reports and external pieces of content. So in the olden days, a year ago, you would have a writer spend weeks doing research and creating this huge white paper, then you would gate. You don't have to do that anymore. I mean, you can really think about all of the interesting topics and all of the things that you think would be valuable for prospects. And AI can create a full research report that then is segmented into multiple different blog posts and smaller reports, and emails and ads. I mean, you can do all of this through AI. And of course, there's human intervention. I mean, you have to spend 10 to 20% to tweak it and perfect it. But I mean, it literally accelerates your content creation by weeks. And just to give you an example, we are doing a competitor campaign. And instead of the olden days where you had to do huge amounts of research and create page after page after page for, this company versus that, you use AI. You just have a web, landing page template and use all the available tools to say, hey, what is the internet? What are review sites? What are our customers? What are our case studies? What are they all saying about why we're better than all of these competitors? And you could spin up competitor pages in a day and it used to take months. I mean, it's really exciting when you think about the opportunities and how fast you can accelerate the production of really good work.
Agreed. And I think so much of it is around the communication to the individual, whether they're on an individual person level or also at an account level, to get that messaging, to get that research. And in the past, it was really heavy lifting. So you're able to kind of deliver that customization to each of your potential customers, whether they're prospects or current customers, in such an easier way. And I know that also there's AI that can even help you to develop these landing pages on the fly. You can make ads that are dynamic for based on IP addresses. So these back in the olden days, it was definitely a one by one type of activity, and that's not how it is anymore. But I think that's a good way to kind of think about like how are you now approaching the integration of AI? So again, we use tools internally that you can upload either your branding or specific product messaging to make sure that the AI is delivering something that's in line with what your messaging is as a company. But I think there's another part of it of how are you integrating it across all of your marketing tech stack to make sure it's a cohesive system. So I think there's a lot of discussion around the agentic mindset and what kinds of work should the human own and what kinds of work should the AI own and be driving. How is that kind of balance for the three of you?
Jess, you want to start?
Sure.
Or again, otherwise.
Yeah, so I would say that I'm not quite. Francois probably has a bunch of agents in his basement right now doing doing all the work. I'm definitely
Wish.
not quite there yet. We are not. I'd say I'm not using as much agentic AI as probably other folks are, and mainly it's just because of the teams that I've been working with are not quite there yet. I'm excited to hear what Francois and Chris say. I think that still for us, it's still requiring a lot of human intervention. And I think the big thing for us is what we're trying to look at the existing tools that we have and seeing what AI capabilities they have, and then matching them against AI first tools. There's kind of all the legacy tools that are adding in AI. There's a whole set of new tools that are coming that have really started with AI, and really trying to understand what's the additional value that you're going to get from those new tools. I think my philosophy has always been to try to minimize the number of tools in our tech stack, just because it gets so complicated and expensive to try to work them all in. And so the question I always ask myself is, can we do this with what we already have? And what's the advantage of bringing in yet another new tool? And will that give us a massive benefit, which overcomes the pain of adding, an agent or an AI specific tool?
I wish I had a lot of agents working for me in the background, but the reality is that there's actually few marketing teams that are there yet, and the state of agents is not, especially if you think of one that's going to be fully integrated into your tech stack. They're not necessarily ready for that. There's very few companies that do that, and even at Augment Code, where my team loves using AI, there's very few real good ongoing agentic workflows. Simply for the reason that Jess mentioned, we really want to be, marketing is about taste, marketing is about also nuance, and we want to make sure that we really supervise and fine tune what's going on out there. In terms of integration, one of the first things to do is really integrating your knowledge base, identifying your knowledge and putting that at the service of your main AI. People are always wondering, should I be using OpenAI ChatGPT or Anthropic's Clouds by Anthropic or Gemini or Copilot? And the capabilities are getting closer and closer. Of course, there's differences, but they move so fast. What matters most, I think, is seeing which one does your IT security team really approve, have they set up and give you premium tools for, and then giving it the content that you need in the form of projects or knowledge bases they can tap, fitting your meeting calls into that if you can, your persona cards, your deep research, etc. And then that really benefits the rest of the team. I'm working with a company now to really, they have an SME on financial services, someone who is the only one in product marketing who knows that very well when it's a company that comes from and typically markets into tech. And what we're doing is we're trying to find all the content that this SME has published that she can find online or that she has in her head, and really put that associated with a project, in this case, probably using Google's Gemini, because also it's tied to all your Google Drive folders if you want to give access to them. And so we're feeding that, and as a result, the team benefits from this knowledge. The deep integrations, I haven't seen them again very well yet, but something definitely to think about. with a role that when you think about marketing ops, this is really a place where you want your marketing operations folks to really think about the AI capabilities and integrations of tools as they look into new tools.
Yeah, just to go back, being mindful that we've got people with different kind of knowledge levels here. Talking about, just to kind of touch on what is agentic AI. So I kind of think about there's like, in terms of getting a full task done, there's a workflow approach, which is you've got something that is fully repeatable and you want to go through the same steps every single time. And so content production can be one of those things. You can write an article going through many, many steps, where you might write the article, do an editorial review, do a compliance review, all of that through AI. And then there's agentic, which to me the AI is making decisions for you, and there might be that workflow might change, and the intelligence in the agent is deciding what path to choose and what action to take. And yeah, so to echo what Jessica and Francois have said, I don't think agentic AI is really there yet in terms of a lot of practical applications that I've seen yet. I'm sure they are very close. But in terms of your overall tech stack, and this kind of gets into the next question I think we're going to go into, but one of the things that I think is super important within any organization, but marketing is the one I know, is somebody on your team who kind of, and this may be an engineering resource that you're borrowing, but somebody who kind of understands how all these pieces fit together, and how you can make connections between systems. And it can be as simple as, sending content using Zapier or Make or something like that. Or it can be coded. But I think you need somebody there who can help you understand those connections, but then also kind of the build versus buy decisions when you need something done. There are tons and tons of off-the-shelf tools. As Jessica said, there's some AI functionality coming into existing stuff, but it moves so fast, and in a lot of cases, you can build things just as quickly as you can get through a buying process that might not be as fully featured, but that fit your needs even better.
Yeah, it's really interesting to say that, Chris. I've been seeing more companies hiring what they're calling a go-to-market engineer, which I think is really interesting. And actually, as I think about the kids coming out of college with coding degrees who may not actually be coding anymore, this is a really interesting new intersection between marketing and sales and engineering that didn't exist anymore. And so I personally think that there is a huge opportunity for these, more engineering skill sets to sit at the intersection of coding and AI and go to market. And they're going to be the architects of your marketing tech stack, and really thinking about what are the AI tools that we need to implement. And it's going to change every 3 months. So what's the new thing? And I think Clay for me is the best example, which is Clay is incredibly powerful. I mean, it's kind of taken over the world in sales and marketing, but you need someone very, very technical and someone that really deeply understands how to architect the system to really make that work. So I think there's just, it's as you think about MOPS, as you think about the people that historically have done all the work, you need to think about them a little bit differently now.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So
and even in
okay,
go ahead,
Francois.
Melissa.
No,
Uh,
no, please.
Even in roles like growth, they don't have to only be to me, that's a central function, the marketing operations. Your growth leaders, and I've just hired one recently, who it's the type of people who are using Zapier to automate some workflow, some campaigns, some production, can be using Zapier today, Make, AirOps, Relay, whatever. What's changed is that they've integrated some integrations with AI, so everything that had to be really specifically determined in advance as if then that, you can insert AI flows which help you make the decision, create contents, and that changes a lot. So you just want to make sure you hire people like that who can, as a result, or Clay, better automate the finding leads, enriching leads, sending them or testing different things, and just do a lot of experiments like that where these folks can do the work of almost 2 to 3 people. Not that you should hire a few people, but you should make sure that everybody on the team produces better, more personalized content and campaigns for your target audience.
And how are you guys working that into, we talked about this in the beginning about making sure this is part of your team and is part of the interview process from a CMO level. How are you doing that for your teams to make sure that you're assessing that they have these AI skills and they're part of the interview process and the conversation as you're going through hiring?
To me, it's super simple. During the interview process, I ask them to show me the workflows they've set up, how they use AI, and I just figure out do they just teach me anything or not.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I haven't hired anyone in the past sort of few months just because I have been doing this fractional work. But I would say one of the big things that I've really been focused on in the companies that I've been working with, it's just so interesting that none of the companies I've been working with have really put AI first. And these are small companies, these are big companies. And so I am forcing them to really think about AI. And so one of the things that I've told, I've just started fractional work at a relatively large company. And I told everyone on the team that they need to come back to me by the end of this week with a list of how they are going to 10x their productivity. And I said, it's okay if you need to take a day off from work and all you're doing is researching tools and processes and you're seeing what other people are doing. But the only way they're going to 10x productivity is by using AI tools. And so every single person has to come back to me with their list. And then we're going to go through as an organization and figure out what are we going to implement. It's not a nice to have anymore. It's a must have. If you're looking at how are you going to stay competitive, how are you going to be fast enough, how are you going to be able to get enough content out, enough ads out, you have to think differently. And so it really is just forcing cultural change.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome idea. I think the one of the things that has really differentiated the companies that I've seen that are good with AI versus those that aren't is a top-down kind of almost kind of obsessive focus with how are we going to use this. So we have a few CMOs or CEOs even in our portfolio that have taken this approach. One company mandated 2 days, what they called AI days, where the whole company spent those 2 days kind of in their individual teams working through how can we, and brainstorming and then implementing how we're going to use AI to make our processes better. And they came through, and I think there were skeptical folks within that within the group about how that was going to work, and came out of it saying this was incredibly valuable. Like we've gotten so much value out of improving the processes, kind of taking some of the very manual stuff off of our plates. So I think that kind of leadership, whether it's within the marketing team or at the whole company level, I think is what I'm seeing really drive companies forward.
In the end, it's really fun because in marketing, we've all suffered from, I don't have enough engineers supporting me. I don't have enough designers supporting me. I don't have enough data analysts. All this, not all of these things, but some of these things that we were just begging for, or waiting for resources or budget. Now we can do on our own. Right? We can't always go 100% there, but we can get close and we can experiment. And that's what makes it super fun for the teams once they realize what it can do. And this is, God bless you, Jess and Chris, for doing that. Like give them, it could be an afternoon every 2 weeks, could be a whole day, encouragement, budgets to unlock, to try different things. And also show them the examples by doing that yourself. What's great is actually, it takes some of the tasks we hate using, we don't have time to do, and it can do that in the background for us. That's why personally, I love deep research, which by the way, is also agentic because it plans the research for you, makes it, does it for you, etc. This is why it's make the time, hire for this skill set, enable budgets, really give them budgets to play with some tools, and figure out if there's what the blockers are. Send us a small survey saying what's standing in your way of adopting. Is it that we have improved tools? Is it skill set? Is it time? And see which ones you can unblock.
Yeah, I would say I love that. I totally agree. And I would say don't get so hung up on the tool. I would say I've looked at so many of the tools. They're all relatively similar. Maybe they have slightly different AI, UI, maybe they have slightly different capabilities, but don't get hung up on the perfect tool. Just put something in. Just do something, it's better than nothing. and see, get just the cultural change, I think, is the one that you really have to overcome. And you have to get your team thinking AI first. So when they would, before, when they would hire a contract writer to do a case study, or a contract writer to do a big study, just change that mindset to know we have this AI tool, try that first. And if it doesn't turn out well, then go to plan B. But that should be your plan A, which is the AI first. I think that's the if you start even with that cultural mindset, that will make a huge difference. And especially, I also sit on boards, and I deal a lot with board members. That is a high expectation now from boards, is that, marketing teams are going to be able to do way more with less, because they are seeing and Chris, you're probably seeing this with your very small companies. They're seeing the small companies that are able to do incredible things with very small marketing teams and budgets. And so they are putting pressure on the larger companies to say, hey, this other company is able to get, all these ads and everything out the door with very little budget and very little team. Why can't you? And so there's just a lot of, the CEO is getting this pressure, the board is putting this pressure on. And so we're going to see that more and more. So I think just being as proactive as possible and showing your board, showing your CEO that you are being really proactive is going to be extremely beneficial for you.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's getting pressure from different points. I think you're seeing a lot of very old school type businesses that are just being rolled up by private equity players, with the whole business model being, we're going to apply AI and make this really, really lean and efficient. I think, everybody's going to be disrupted by this. And I think you got to figure out, the more proactive you are about figuring out how your business can use it, the better off you're going to be, both individually, career-wise, but your company as well.
I feel like a lot of this conversation is not only about getting hands-on, and that's the best way to learn. Like you can talk about it for ages, but it's really about getting in there, seeing the results you get back, the prompts, the questions that kind of go from there. But there's also a big part of it that's about the culture change and really having employees embrace AI and have it being seen as an asset and something that they can use to make themselves better in their roles. How do you all kind of reduce the fear that your job is gone because we're using AI now, and instead this is making you better, or this is making the company better, we're delivering better results? Tell me kind of your opinion on that.
I think it disappears the moment you start using it, because you realize, right, look, there was already a glut of content before AI. There was so much content produced by so many companies that we couldn't consume everything anyway. It's going to get worse. So that means it's about always going back to what we do in marketing, which is we're helping people make sometimes career-defining purchase decision. And for that, if you instill this mindset on your team, saying you're going to use this tool from research all the way to execution analysis to help our customers be more inspired, make better decisions, which are right for their use case. Are you going to do that? This is where AI can accelerate this service mindset. I think it comes naturally. They realize, oh, this is actually just going to make my job a little easier. And if they're really concerned about losing their jobs, then maybe the opportunity is, well, once you learn how to use it, you can actually train others as well. And you're going to have a role on the team where you can be our evangelist, where you can learn new things, and you can future proof, at least for the short term. We don't know how it's going to evolve your career if you invest in yourself there.
Yeah, one thing, I think that's totally right. One thing that I have seen is that the best marketing employees want to change and evolve and grow. And so what I have found often, especially if you're a content person and you spent the last 7 to 10 years writing white papers, you're excited, you're looking for something different. If you're a MOPS person who has been approving email campaigns for the past 3 years, you are looking for that next change, and not everybody knows what that next obvious step is. And so if you can work with them and say, instead of writing white papers, you can do all of these other things. You can help us with these competitive pages. You can help us think about our content AI strategy. And there are so many things that are opening up because of AI. So for example, one of the things that we are moving from is moving away from our typical Google SEO strategy and thinking about what our LLM strategy is. That is a totally different. And so when I posed that to my content team and said, hey, I need you to stop thinking about Google, I need you to start thinking about AI strategy, that was really exciting for them. That's a totally new world that they have never experienced. And then they get to dig in and understand, what does that look like? And what do they need to do differently? So it gets them excited because they are expanding their skills. They're doing something new. And yeah, as Francois said, we don't know what's going to happen in a year or two from now, but the more that they can expand those skills and do something besides the very narrow thing that they've been doing, the better it's going to be for them and the more interesting. So I think it really is painting the picture of where they're going to, not just where they're coming from.
The example of the white paper is really good. Like, do you enjoy it? Do we all enjoy reading white papers? And so instead, the challenge could be to that person, hey, look, now you can actually go from a white paper PDF to, you can build an interactive app yourself
Yeah.
with a bubble, a lovable clone artifact. And you only need to know one coding language. It's called English. And then just go ahead and experiment, have fun.
Yeah, I think there's so much about it that can kind of inspire creativity, but how do you see the balance between the human creativity side and strategic thinking, but also in using AI in the roles?
I think what's going to be interesting is how marketer development goes. I think there's still going to be this need for good strategic marketers who understand um, what makes a compelling brand story, a compelling value proposition, how you fit it all together. But then I think how do you, as all the lower level stuff gets automated, how do you develop people into that role? And so I think there's going to be kind of a real premium on the people who have that experience and have gotten to that point. But I think to me it's another real motivator for how do you get your employees to think in those terms and focus more on the strategic work. Because the more you can do that, the more valuable you're going to be over time. Um, so yeah, I think to Jessica's point just now, I've worked with two different content operations. One was a 12-person team at a fintech, and we started implementing AI, and the head of that team said, I'm not doing this. It's not what I want to do. Left and went to a big insurance company to lead content operations there. Another one, stepped in and had always done, had started leveraging AI a little bit. But we fully implemented AI, creating, tons and tons of content using it. And she's excited now about the opportunity to think about, what do we do with brand? What do we think? How do we message our brand? How do we really focus on taking that to a new level, and opening up new career pathways for her? So I think that's how people need to think about this, and thinking about what do I do next with the time I can create for myself.
Yeah, it was really interesting when I was at Calendly. We, our content team, just on their own, decided to really embrace AI. And what I loved about it was that this team went from, we didn't reduce the team at all, even though we implemented all of these AI tools, because what they did is they went from being content creators to content strategists. And that was really interesting for them. And so when they were thinking about the content they were creating, it wasn't just, okay, I am taking tickets from somebody else who's asked me to create a white paper, asked me to create a case study. They were going out, they were looking at the market, they were figuring out where there were holes and gaps, where Calendly had a voice where nobody else could. And they were coming to the distributors, they were coming to our email team, our ads, our demand gen team, and saying, hey, I think we have opportunities to do all of this. And they became strategic partners, and it totally transformed that function. And when you think about the job satisfaction and the impact and the value of somebody who was just a ticket taker for content and now is a content strategist, I mean, that was pretty transformational.
That's great. Just, do you know how they were doing that? The workflows they used? That's a fantastic use case and example.
Yeah, I mean, it was really just on the content side. So they just were using, AI content creators. So instead of spending weeks doing a white paper and doing all these case studies and the blog posts, they were using AI to do all of the first versions of it. And they were doing the editing of it. And so, I mean, it just was a dramatic, I mean, it was taking something that would have been 20, 30 hours and making it 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah, well, we all use ChatGPT to synthesize our research. If you ask the right questions, as a result, we don't see a bunch of bullet links we need to click through. But we can really accelerate research. If you haven't tried deep research, even a slightly premium subscription at $20 a month, whether that's Gemini, Google Cloud, mostly Gemini and OpenAI, you'll see the quality of the analysis. But your job, and this is going back to your question, Melissa, is to direct it by telling it your goals, the sources you trust, those you don't trust, applying human judgment to the output all the time. And so taste and good judgment, critical thinking are probably more critical than ever. Because what's really annoying as a customer is receiving AI slop. So something that doesn't feel like there was good judgment from a human being who cared about you to send you something good. And that, I think, on our teams, the bar is just higher now. You need people who who will make you feel special on the receiving end, and AI can help them do that.
And there's truly a way to leverage the AI in a humanistic way to make sure that it's not coming off robotic, that you are communicating with them. I think it's just enabling you to communicate with more people in a more personalized way, that you're knowing kind of their likes, dislikes, what we're kind of working through, and be able to communicate your value as a company to them as an individual. That feels like a lot of the benefit that's been out there. So I know we only have a couple minutes left. I mean, if there's only one key takeaway from each of you on how to leverage AI right now, what would you give as your recommendation?
I would just pick one use case to start with. So I would really look at look at your organization, talk to your team, and kind of figure out culturally what is the thing that's holding you back most, and really start with that versus trying to do everything. That would be my suggestion.
I like it, and I just want to repeat one that Jess already gave. Just give your team just a day or an afternoon to go figure that out together. Actually, you give them the choice. Some people prefer learning and doing on their own, and some will prefer doing it in small teams. But just make the space for them. It's difficult. We're all trying to run so fast, ship our campaigns, launch our product, etc. But in the end, this will make a massive difference, and repeat it every quarter.
Yeah, I think to steal a line, I think it's just do it. Like just start using it, start playing with it. I think the ideas kind of just become evident pretty quickly. To use a close to home example, my wife has a resume writing business and had been very resistant to using it because of integrity and so forth. And like this is what she's invested her career in, and she started using Claude within a month or so ago, and just the ideas that she's had already as far as how do I leverage this and what are the different things that I could do to scale the really good stuff that I'm doing is incredible. So I think just the more you just dive in, the quicker and more obvious it becomes.
Thank you. I mean, I know that we've all said there's a number of AI tools that are out there, and obviously there's many different options to choose from. So it seems like the recommendation is to just choose something and get started, pick your use case and see the benefit. And I think that will help to eliminate the fear for not only you as an individual, but also for the team as a whole. So it's bringing them together so they can realize that this will help advance their creativity, open up new options, and really kind of take marketing to the next level. Since we know in 3 months, it won't be the same. And it'll be, as Jessica said, the olden days. So we are moving fast and furious to the future. And we thank you all for your insights and valuable stories and use cases of kind of your experience of AI in your positions now. Thank you for sharing, and hopefully we can continue this conversation. So thank you, everyone. If you need anything from the Smartcat perspective, we'll be sending out some additional resources for additional education regarding AI. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.